Kitchen in Cornelius is where sport and food are paired perfectly with philanthropy. Come play, dine, celebrate, and connect. No membership required. All ages welcome. Eat, play, serve it forward. Visit theservepickleball.com.
The following is a paid program and does not necessarily reflect the views of WSIC.
She's a CMS graduate, a mom, and a technology leader who believes every family deserves great schools, strong support, and a real seat at the table. From Davidson to Cornelius, Huntersville to North Charlotte, she knows our communities want the same thing. Schools that work, voices that matter, and leadership that listens. This work is personal. She grew up here. She's raising her children here. And now, she's leading here, using data, heart, and real community connection to help level up public education. So let's log in, level up, and lead forward together. Welcome to the Community Classroom. Here's your host, CMS Board of Education District 1 Representative, Dr. Charlitta Hatch.
Happy Women's History Month, and welcome to the Community Classroom, the place where we slow it down, break it down, and help families feel informed, connected, and confident navigating our schools. Women's History Month is not just about the women who came before us. It's about the conversation happening across the kitchen tables right now. And there is no better way to celebrate Women's History Month than with a mother-daughter duo. And I am so excited to introduce to you all my dear friend Carol and her daughter Grace. Welcome to the Community Classroom.
Thank you for having us.
Yes. And so we're going to get right into it. But before we do, I would love to just kind of hear a little bit about your background. So Carol, if you could just share kind of who you are and what you do, and then your relationship with Grace. And then you can hand it over to Grace, and we would love to hear a little bit about your background too, Grace.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been in technology for 30 years, and I started Inspired Digital Consulting about 2 years ago. And we're focused on enabling clients to learn how to leverage generative and agentic AI to create new digital products in the right way faster that solve business needs. And of course, I'm Grace's mom, and she is the oldest of three. So I've also got a daughter, Jacqueline, and a son, Dylan.
Awesome. Love that. How about you, Grace?
My name is Grace, daughter to Carol. I don't have as much experience as she does, but I'm a senior at App State this year. I graduate this spring. Oh, how time flies. And I'm studying environmental economics with a minor in sustainable business. So that's pretty much what sums up my life and the point I'm at right now. But I'll hand it back to you.
And I love that. I think when we think about, Women's History Month, one thing that I've been really big on is that we are making history every day in our own right. So you have your mom here, a phenomenal girl boss in IT, male dominated industry, leading in artificial intelligence. But then you have you, Grace, right, in college, getting your education, and you have the playbook right here in your own mom. And I think it's just a testament to where we are as women in this space. But I would love to hear, Carol, a little bit about kind of who shaped you as a woman and what was it like for you growing up?
I'm a child of the 70s, so this kind of goes way back in time. But I would say my mom was a big shaper in my background. Unfortunately, my father died of a massive heart attack when he was just 50. I was 18 months old, and my mom had 5 children and never really had a job outside of the home, didn't really drive a car, didn't know how to write checks, like none of that. But she was able to really reinvent herself. She started an Avon business, which was, in the 70s, like that's something that was possible for women to start their own business. I was her pick, pack, and ship. I was her sales companion. So she had to take me with her on all of her sales calls, and she was amazing. She built a business. She went on all kinds of, awards trips to Hawaii and the Bahamas and other places based on the work that she had done. So seeing her being that resilient and going from, that devastating event to actually building a business with a small child. And actually, there were my sister Laura and my brother Paul were also relatively small when all this was happening. Was significant. And from a educational standpoint, some of my earliest memories, one I'll share, and then we can pass it over to Grace. But one of the things that I remember going from fifth grade into sixth grade is, coming into the principal's, main office and saying goodbye to, some of the teachers that were there. And I remember the principal saying, "Well, come back and see us when you're Miss America." There was no "come back and see us when you're the CEO of a company." So that the expectation that was set at a very early age, and I thought it was strange, but at a very early age was that's what you do. You look pretty and you go marry somebody who's going to do well and become Miss America. So
Thank you for lifting that up. One, I loved hearing the story about your mother, and how she, took pain and turned it into, something. And I feel like almost all phenomenal women have that story, like rooted in grief, rooted in pain, rooted in something. And then they go on to like make change across the world. And so I love that she did that for y'all. I also appreciate you highlighting in the 70s how women were just expected to get their MRS degree. And so before we pass it over to Grace, curious about what did you not have that you want your daughter to have? And I kind of think it starts with the MRS expectation.
yeah, well, absolutely. So what I didn't have, I mean, my mom was strong and resilient, but I did not have an example of an executive female leader who was truly an inspired leader. And I think Charlitta, that I've just finished writing a manuscript on inspired leadership. And to me, an inspired leader is someone who leads with humility and wisdom, builds high trust teams with unity of purpose, and can communicate with people on a heart level. Most of the women that I saw were not in those executive level roles. And the ones that I did hear about didn't necessarily lead in that way. I thought you had to be like a man, and you had to, lead with ego, to be successful. And I think I've proven otherwise. And I hope my daughters have seen that example.
I love that. Well, if you can believe it, the bell is ringing and it's time for us to switch classes. And when we come back to our next class, we're going to start with you, Grace. So looking forward to it. Y'all come on back on time.
Stay with us. The community classroom continues in moments with Dr. Charlitta Hatch, right here on WSIC. Local starts here.
Oh boy, cold front means business. From a beautiful Sunday to a cold Monday, kicking off our work week. Extra clouds and the occasional shower make it a damp day of weather, so keep the rain gear close by. High temperatures only into the upper 40s, dropping back around 40 overnight. We'll be drying it out into the 60s Tuesday, and a big-time warm-up by the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the Surf, Pickleball, and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Need a ride? iCats has you covered. Tuesdays to the VA in Salisbury, Thursday to Winston-Salem, and Fridays to Hickory. Plus, run errands every day around Iredell County for just $1. Visit rideicats.com.
Here's your WSIC community calendar.
Start your engines in Huntersville at the Huntersville Spring Car and Truck Show, happening Saturday, March 14th from 9 a.m. to noon at Veterans Park. Car, truck, and motorcycle owners are invited to show off their rides, connect with fellow enthusiasts, and compete for awards. Or just come enjoy the vehicles, food, and car lover atmosphere. Registration is free, but space is limited. For details and sign-up information, visit huntersville.org/events.
Then keep the fun going that same day. Luck of the Village, the St. Patrick's Day celebration, takes place March 14th from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. Enjoy live bagpipes from the Loch Norman Pipe Band, Irish dance performances, and high-energy music from the Hitmen Party Band. Plus, plenty of family-friendly fun and festive vibes. It's free to attend and perfect for all ages. Learn more at birkdalevillage.com.
And if you're already thinking about your next night out, make Thursdays easy with live music Thursdays at the Serve Pickleball Plus Kitchen in Cornelius. This week features Carolina native John Sullivan performing Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. in the lounge, while guests play pickleball, sip drinks, and enjoy dinner. It's the perfect way to kickstart your Lake Norman weekend, and live music continues every Thursday. Find details at theservepickleball.com.
MerleFest 2026, presented by Window World, returns April 23rd through 26th to Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Hear Allison Krause at Union Station, featuring Jerry Douglas, Old Crow Medicine Show, Charles Wesley Godwin, Blackberry Smoke, and more. For tickets, visit merlefest.org.
For even more local events, seasonal festivals, and things happening around Lake Norman, visit liveworkplaylkn.com.
That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
Welcome back to the Community Classroom, hosted by Dr. Charlitta Hatch. Insight, context, and community voices, only on WSIC. Local starts here.
Welcome back, class, and thank you for being here on time. Well done. We left off talking to Carol a bit about kind of what it was like growing up. I think her words being a child of the 70s, and what the expectations of for women during that time period, particularly from a career perspective and also from an academic perspective. So I'm curious, Grace, from your seat, what do you, one, feel the expectations are for you as a young collegiate woman? Like, how does it differ from what your mom just shared?
I think that one of the biggest differences that I've noticed between my mom's experience and my own is that now that women are seen a lot more in higher education, almost more so than men, I really feel that I'm not necessarily competing with them as much. I think that there are still some a lot of barriers for women in a lot of different areas, but I think that I'm at the point in higher education where my people skills, my personality, my softness is way more valued than that egotisticalness that men typically have. And so I think that I honestly do better than a lot of my male counterparts because of all of the female traits and caringness that I have, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I do think that I remember as a child of the 80s, when I first started my career in consulting, and one of the female partners was basically like, you got to dress like a man in order to kind of fit in. So she talked about how she wore like bigger, baggier clothing or pantsuits. And I was coming in there in like colorful, like hot pink blazers and like purple dresses. And she was kind of trying to coach me out of that. And that's when I first saw like the different generational pieces, because as a millennial, albeit an older millennial, we didn't come from having to emulate men like kind of previous generations. And what I think is interesting, Grace and Carol, is that we still have these multi-generationals in the workplace and in education. And so thinking about whether or not women's ideals are shifting to now, or do some women, depending on their generation, still have those older ideas and it's conflicting with some of the younger women, that kind of
Mm.
coexist. So that makes perfect sense on why you feel like you don't have to compete with men.
Mhm. And that's not to say that there aren't barriers for women that still exist. There definitely are. But I much more often find myself using my feminine traits to my advantage. A lot of times there's leadership roles at school where I excel really well at conflict management, at having a balanced discussion, whereas I think that maybe my male counterparts just have a different lens with which they were raised. And so there's certain trade-offs, I would definitely say.
The other thing I'm hearing you say is what was seen as almost a weakness for you, it is now an asset. So it's no longer
Mhm.
where some of the attributes of women were maybe frowned upon if demonstrated in the workplace. For you, you see it as an asset. And I love that we are at this point. Carol, interested in how this ties into kind of the term you used earlier around inspired leadership. Do you believe that some of that is through your experience as a woman leader, kind of anchored in that? Do you think that gender has a big influence on how you've been able to lead?
Yeah, it's interesting because as I reflected back on stories from my career, there's actually a lot of men who also have these traits. So, I talk about Frank D'Souza, who was the creator and CEO of Cognizant Technology Solutions. And, to meet him, he was very humble, very collaborative. He was someone who definitely created high trust teams. And it was not the Frank show. It was never the Frank show. I would say I've had experiences with, for example, my mentor who I just met for lunch today, Lance Drummond. He also demonstrates, I would say, more balanced, characteristics in how he leads. And so I've begun to think that it's maybe less about gender and more about your worldview. And so I think when we both come to the center, right, when women feel comfortable leveraging what is naturally feminine leadership capabilities in a positive way, and leveraging things that are seen to be naturally masculine at the right time, and men feeling comfortable doing the same thing, I really think that's where the magic happens. It's that balance of being authentically who you are and not having to pretend like you're the strong man or you're the strong woman or whatever. It's just like coming to the table as yourself.
And I think being able to, oh, go ahead, Grace, please.
I was going to say, to that point, I think that my generation versus hearing my mom's generation and what she experienced, I think that the societal expectation and gender norms have become a lot more blurred. And so now when we talk about certain traits that we have, it's not necessarily that I'm more warming, caring because I'm a woman. It's more of the age demographic, the people I surround myself with. I think that nowadays, when I see a man who is not necessarily as caring, it's not because it's a man, it's maybe like you have some things to still learn.
I think that is so spot on. And it is interesting to think about what it would have been like to lead as a woman, like with your grandma and your mom, Carol, and the attributes that you just talked about, being warm and caring, how that might have been perceived then versus how it's perceived now. I think it is a
Hmm.
testament to the work that women have done to get us to this point where we can be authentic. And also, to your point, we still have a ways to go. So, speaking about that, has there been a time at all? So, whether it's in education or sports or just at any point in your life, Grace, where you felt like being a woman was seen as a disadvantage or you had to prove yourself in a space that you maybe thought maybe your male counterparts would not have had to?
Well, my degree being economics is really a male dominated field currently, especially at the university I'm at. And so, literally, just last semester, I was in an econometrics course. I was the only woman in the class. The instructor was a male. All my counterparts were male. And there were certain times within the classroom where I would maybe bring up the fact, oh, hey, I'm the only woman in the class, or I would just kind of suggest using a change of language in some of the lectures or how they've approached certain topics. And I kind of got really side eye looks, kind of, oh, that wasn't even something that they would have thought of if it weren't for the fact that I was in the room. And so those are still those moments where I recognize the barriers that women have, because sometimes if there wasn't a woman in the room, some of these things wouldn't be brought up.
I agree. Yeah, that bias and the fact that it, it almost is like an invisibility, right? And where they're like, "Oh, I didn't even notice that you were a woman," or "I didn't even notice that," and it's
Mhm.
like, okay, so how did that make you
Mhm.
feel?
And on the one hand, I'm grateful that they don't treat me any differently, that they're not putting padded guardrails on for me, that they feel I'm just as qualified. But also, on the other hand, I wish that regardless of whether or not a woman was in a room, men would be asking the same questions.
Yes, Carol, did have you had a time, maybe in the past, and but also recently, where you felt that way?
Oh, where I felt like I was, invisible. Is that the
Yes.
question?
Hmm.
Um, I guess I don't really have that personality, and I'm pretty vocal. So, I think at this point in my life and my career, uh, if I enter a new space where I haven't met people yet, and they don't necessarily know a lot about me, I would say I'm initially underestimated. And part of it may be because I'm observing, and I am quiet until I have something, meaningful to say. But I think that once I do speak up, I'm no longer invisible. But I do still feel like initially people try to take a read on me, and they see me, and they come to a snap judgment about who I am, and then when I speak up, they're shocked. Which is
Yeah,
kind
and
of cool, shocked in a good way, like, oh, I didn't realize she was that smart.
yeah, but then the bias of what they thought that you would be based off just looking at you. And I think we have to acknowledge the intersectionality here, where, I feel like even now, similar to you, where people may underestimate you. And then I'm like, is it because I'm black or is it because I'm a woman? And we're going to leave it right there, folks, because it is time to switch classes. So we will be back on the other side of this with Grace and Carol, the dynamic mother daughter duo.
We'll be right back with the Community Classroom, community perspectives, school success stories, and education insight you can use. Only on WSIC.
Oh boy, cold front means business. From a beautiful Sunday to a cold Monday. Kicking off our work week. Extra clouds and the occasional shower make it a damp day of weather, so keep the rain gear close by. High temperatures only into the upper 40s, dropping back around 40 overnight. We'll be drying it out into the 60s Tuesday and a big time warm up by the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
I'm Bryce Johnson with this Unpacking It Sports and Faith Minute. Let's face it, not every team can win a championship. For many teams, the mark of a successful season will be determined by whether or not they maximize the talent that they had and gave all they could. As followers of Jesus, are we maximizing the gifts we have? If Jesus has changed our lives and we truly understand what he's done for us, then we'll want to give all we have back to him. We don't want to just give our leftovers, but rather our very best. Even if we don't have as much talent or money as someone else, what matters is whether or not we're willing to give all we can. In Mark 12 of the Bible, Jesus commended the poor widow for her meager offering because it was given in trust and faith. We too will be commended not for the size of our gifts or the outcomes we produce, but our faithfulness. Today, let's remember that it's not about how much we have to give, but giving our all with what we do have. I'm Bryce Johnson, and you can unpack that. For more, go to unpackingit.com.
Keep winter cold outside with propane heat from GMB Energy. We provide cost-effective propane to cook meals and heat your home and water, even when the power goes out. For a limited time, save big with rebates, like up to $350 on Cozy Heat fireplaces and up to $450 on select Rinnai tankless water heaters. Visit one of our 9 locations. Call 855-LPG-PROS or visit gbenergy.com. GMB Energy, family-owned and NC Grow.
Have but one objective.
Honey, can you turn that down?
Ladies.
Honey, can you turn it down?
Ever feel like your house is shaking every time your husband watches TV?
What?
Honey, can you turn it down?
That's not surround sound. That's hearing loss. Beltone in Mooresville and Cornelius can help. With expert hearing tests and top quality hearing aids, you can finally enjoy your TV without shaking the whole neighborhood. Visit nchearing.com to schedule your free hearing test today. That's nchearing.com.
The crowning achievement in clean. Smarter waste solutions start with Crown Waste and Recycling, serving homes and businesses across the Lake Norman area. From compactors and roll-offs to full recycling services. Affordable, environmentally conscious, and woman-owned. We're Clean Rain Supreme. Call 704-2222-639 today.
N110, upscale and elegant, but never pretentious. Over 500 whiskeys, 100 wines, craft cocktails, and crave-worthy small bites. Live music plus monthly comedy nights and tastings. Post your next event at N110, located at 19712 1 Norman Boulevard in Cornelius.
Friendly reminder, don't break when you see the lake.
WSIC, local starts here.
This is a Bloomberg Money Minute. On the first day of trading after the U.S. and Israeli began their missile attacks on Iran, the big story on Wall Street was oil, not stocks. Crude prices up as much as 8%, hitting 4-year highs, topping $71 a barrel as Iran set up a blockade in the Strait of Hormuz to stop any shipments coming out of the Persian Gulf and conducted drone strikes of their own on a major Saudi oil refinery and a natural gas facility in Qatar. As for stocks, those attacks on Iran sent oil company and defense contractor shares higher today. Shares of airlines and cruise ship operators, which both use a ton of oil, were lower. At the close, the Dow down 72 points, the Nasdaq up 81, the S&P added 3, and Safe Haven Gold back above $5,300 an ounce. And after tens of thousands of travelers were stranded in the Middle East since Saturday, several international airlines, Emirates, Etihad, and Fly Dubai have resumed a limited number of flights out of the UAE. Tom Busby, Bloomberg Radio.
Don't miss a thing. Download the WSIC News app today. WSIC. Local starts here. Welcome back to the Community Classroom, hosted by Dr. Charlitta Hatch. Insight, context, and community voices only on WSIC. Local starts here.
Welcome back, class. We have been having such great conversation as we celebrate Women's History Month with Carol and Grace and the dynamic mother-daughter duo, as I am calling them. We left off really talking about, in spaces in which we may kind of coexist today and feel invisible. And then the intersectionality piece of race and gender and how that comes into play. And what I think is interesting about even the progression that we've had in 2020 up until 2026, right now it feels like we've taken some steps back, even if we're making kind of inroads on our own. I'm curious if either of you have felt like we potentially are taking steps forward and taking steps back at the same time.
Grace, do you want to start?
I'm collecting my thoughts, so give me 1 second.
I'll
pass it off to you, Mom.
Yeah, no, I think, it's really interesting because from kind of a holistic country level, it does feel like there's, there's a pullback on diversity and inclusion. But interestingly, on the ground, engaging one-on-one with clients. I'm also a member of the National Association of Corporate Directors, right? So people who have been on paid corporate boards. I'm almost seeing an over rotation for people to recognize that diversity and inclusion is still important, regardless of what is said at kind of a U.S. Holistic level. So in some ways, it's kind of emboldening people to say, it is important, and we're going to continue to, to treat people equitably, because I feel like we've, at least in my circles, right, we've focused more on what's the positive impact that you can drive, not as a woman, but just as a professional, in community with other professionals. So that's been my experience.
Awesome. Grace, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I think specifically I'll kind of narrow in at like the institution level, specifically the university I'm at. I am a part of a program called Women of Walker, which is women in the business college here at App State. And that is an amazing opportunity where it's all about women in leadership, building each other up, networking, making those connections. But at the same time, I don't think that that's necessarily a good representation of what's happening in total, because I think that going to a PWI, predominantly white institution, also reveals the dark underbelly of universities and how different races are disproportionately affected, how people are chosen for opportunities. There's been so many times where I look around the classroom and it's just a bunch of white kids. And I mean, that's okay, but at the same time, it doesn't offer that diverse perspective, especially women of color here. I definitely see that they're sometimes undervalued. And so I wish that there were more opportunities to build women of color up and push them towards these opportunities and show them that, hey, there are openings here. It's something that not only my institution has to work on, but all institutions across America.
I love that. That was so well said. And I think that, from my view, I couldn't agree with you more. Both of you. Like the country and the noise that we're hearing in the media, it does kind of make me emotional sometimes. But then I have to go to my neighbor and to like my colleague, and I just hope and pray that I'm not in an unknown bubble, right? And that there are more good neighbors out there that see me and see who I am as a Black woman in this country making a contribution, than not. So when we think about women, I am very fond of Marianne Williamson. And I want to read this quote. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightening about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. And as we think about that and we sit in that, Carol, what does that mean to you? And what do you want to say to your daughter about that?
I love that. I think that we are all uniquely and brilliantly made, and we have gifts. There's a famous Einstein quote where he says that if you were to judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it would go its whole life thinking it was a failure. And so I think knowing who you are and who you're not, which unfortunately for me, I had to learn who I was not to understand who I was, and maybe everybody goes through that same process. But I think it's important, Grace, and I think we've had this conversation before, to not shrink from corporate bullies or bullies anywhere, because you're going to find people like the guy I told you about who was I think he was probably afraid of me, and he told me not to use my title, right? Because it made him feel less. And I went through this whole process to basically, say, yeah, no, we're not doing that. That's not happening. So not shrinking to corporate bullies. And then also, I think from my story, I experienced imposter syndrome, and I still have that, believe it or not, every once in a while. So don't shrink from the maybe the voices in your head that tell you that you're not good enough, because we are our biggest critic, and that internal critic needs to just be silenced, because there's so much good that you can do in the world, so much impact that you can make that's positive. And if you're constantly thinking about how you're not good enough, that's just the voice of the enemy trying to prevent you from your greatness. And just don't listen to it. Just tell it to shut up.
Yes, so good. And I'm going to take those lessons as if you were talking to me. But Grace, I would love for you to share with your mom how she's impacted you.
I think that not only has my mom impacted me in showing me how to have drive and how to excel at what you do, but I also think that I have grown up extremely privileged in that a lot of the typical self doubt and inadequacy and imposter syndrome sometimes almost doesn't exist for me because of who I grew up with as a mom. Like sometimes I don't even recognize that I may be at a disadvantage because that's just not how I was grown up. Like that's not how I was raised. I was never told you can't do it, you shouldn't join that class, you shouldn't be here. So I've never grown up with someone telling me that I couldn't do something. And through that mindset that I got from my parents, now I operate in the world as if I should be there. I'm a very confident individual, and just my presence alone, I feel conveys to others, I deserve to be here. Don't question it.
I love that so much. And it has just touched my own mama heart. And I surely hope my 4-year-old one day will say that same thing to me. So I need you to give me some notes, Carol. And with that, we are switching classes one last time. So be sure to join us back on the other side of the community classroom with Grace and Carol as we close out our segment on Women's History Month. See y'all soon.
We'll be right back with the Community Classroom, community perspectives, school success stories, and education insight you can use. Only on WSIC.
Oh boy, cold front means business. From a beautiful Sunday to a cold Monday. Kicking off our work week. Extra clouds and the occasional shower make it a damp day of weather, so keep the rain gear close by. High temperatures only into the upper 40s, dropping back around 40 overnight. We'll be drying it out into the 60s Tuesday and a big time warm-up by the middle of the week. That's your forecast from the Surf Pickleball and Kitchen. I'm WSIC meteorologist Chase Myers.
Here's your WSIC community calendar.
Start your engines in Huntersville at the Huntersville Spring Car and Truck Show, happening Saturday, March 14th from 9 a.m. to noon at Veterans Park. Car, truck, and motorcycle owners are invited to show off their rides, connect with fellow enthusiasts, and compete for awards. Or just come enjoy the vehicles, food, and car lover atmosphere. Registration is free, but space is limited. For details and sign-up information, visit huntersville.org/events.
Then keep the fun going that same day. Luck of the Village, the St. Patrick's Day celebration, takes place March 14th from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Birkdale Village in Huntersville. Enjoy live bagpipes from the Loch Norman Pipe Band, Irish dance performances, and high-energy music from the Hitmen Party Band. Plus, plenty of family-friendly fun and festive vibes. It's free to attend and perfect for all ages. Learn more at birkdalevillage.com.
And if you're already thinking about your next night out, make Thursdays easy with live music Thursdays at the Serve Pickleball Plus Kitchen in Cornelius. This week features Carolina native John Sullivan performing Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m. in the lounge, while guests play pickleball, sip drinks, and enjoy dinner. It's the perfect way to kickstart your Lake Norman weekend, and live music continues every Thursday. Find details at theservepickleball.com.
MuralFest 2026, presented by Window World, returns April 23rd through 26th to Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Hear Allison Krause in Union Station, featuring Jerry Douglas, Old Crow Medicine Show, Charles Wesley Godwin, Blackberry Smoke, and more. For tickets, visit muralfest.org.
For even more local events, seasonal festivals, and things happening around Lake Norman, visit liveworkplaylkn.com.
That's liveworkplaylkn.com.
Harness the healing power of horses with the amazing staff at Willow Equine in Mooresville. We create a supportive environment conducive to healing and growth, dedicated to self-discovery and overcoming adversity. There's a program for you at willowequine.com.
We're back with more The Community Classroom, breaking down what's happening across Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools with Dr. Charlitta Hatch, right here on WSIC.
Welcome back, and I am just enjoying so much this mother-daughter conversation as we kick off Women's History Month. We talked a bit about Carol pouring into Grace on kind of what she hopes she never shrinks for, and then Grace gave her mom some beautiful flowers on what it means to have a mom pour into you so much that you don't even know how society sees you, because you got to define it for yourself first, which is so powerful. But if you were to offer your mom some advice, Grace, what advice would you give your mom about what it's like to be in your generation right now, kind of navigating through life through your eyes?
I don't know. I think that I could offer my mom some advice right now, and then 5 years down the line, I would say something completely different based off of my life lessons. And I think that at this day and age, for my generation, history is just kind of like a circle. We operate in the same cycles. If there's not a war happening, then it will be now. And so it's kind of like, I think in what's happening, I want to say that it's incredibly chaotic, and I feel like my whole generation feels like the world is falling apart in front of our eyes. But I think that we also are a very outspoken and resilient generation, and I think that sometimes I feel like you worry about me or my siblings, but we'll be okay. Like we're pretty strong, and based off the people that not only I surround myself with, but I think a lot of the mindset that I see amongst people on the internet who are my same age, a lot of us may feel defeated at sometimes, and that can be scary for our parents. But also, at the end of the day, I think we know that we've got this, and like we will be okay. But it takes a second to be okay with what's happening.
I think that's really good advice. But let me tell you, Grace, I'll tell you what my mama told me. I said, Mom, when do you stop worrying about your kids? And she said, I'm still waiting to find out. Now, she also said, when I asked, when do your kids start listening to you? that was also her answer, that she was still waiting to find out. But I think mamas are going to worry regardless, which I think is a good thing. But I don't think it's what they're going to worry about us. And, but I love that you were able to say, like, you've raised us to handle and be prepared for this society and this world. And so know that you did a good job. And I think every mom will want to hear that.
Yes.
So we're going to go rapid fire for a bit. I'm going to ask both of you, but answer it through both of your own lenses. So what is one lesson that every young woman should know? And we'll start with you, Carol.
Your worth.
Right. You know what I say, Carol? Know your worth and add tax.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think too often women they only apply for jobs that they're overqualified for, and they don't typically negotiate their salary, and men do the reverse. So know your worth, add tax. I like that. I'm going to take that from you. And negotiate, because there's this effect of compounding, right? If you don't negotiate early in your career, you end up way behind from a salary perspective.
Yes. What about you, Grace? What is one lesson every young woman should know?
I think similar to my mom, but speak up and take the leadership opportunity, even if you don't think you would necessarily be the right fit. There are so many times I've been in class and I've seen the men go back and forth in the discussion, and the women just like to typically sit there because they're afraid that it's not going to be the right answer. Don't wait for the right answer. Say anything anyways.
That's so good. So good. So I'm going to ask both of you this question, but I want you to answer it from your lens. So when I say mother, obviously, Carol, you're answering it from your experience, but Grace, you're answering it as you're giving advice to her. So what is one thing mothers should release?
Expectations.
Expectation of, tell us more.
Anything like expectation for yourself, for what it is to be a good mom, expectation for your kids and what you expect from them, expectations from your husband or partner or your wife, if that's the situation that you're in. I think that if you just allow what's happening to be as it is and you accept it and you don't have expectations, then you just have a lot more peace in your life.
All right, Grace, what would you say one thing mothers should release?
Oh gosh, I hate rapid fire questions. I think that mothers should, honestly, I want to say expectations as well, just because I think sometimes, not that her expectations are impacting me, but they're getting her into like a tailspin because she's set certain expectations and she's scared. And so, yeah, I think that would be my answer, even though it's kind of the same as hers.
Chocolate, like as long as I don't have to use chocolate, I still want to take that.
So, Grace, I'll start with you on this one. What is one thing daughters should protect?
One thing daughters should protect is their self-identity. I think a lot of times women feel that the easiest option would be to copy whatever your mom or your parents did. And I think that protecting who you are as an individual, what makes you unique, is the most important for creating new habits and setting a new standard for yourself.
So good.
I love that.
Carol, what is one thing daughters should protect?
Their integrity.
Integrity.
Yeah, it's and it's not just always telling the truth. It's not like cash register honesty that I'm talking about. And it kind of ties in. I hate to say the same thing she said, but it kind of ties into what Grace was saying, because you have to have the integrity to be true to yourself. You have to have the integrity when you see something that's wrong, to have the courage to make it right and not to just complain about it, right? But to help people kind of come to the same conclusion that you have come to. You know, I think Charlitta, because you're part of this group, that I created a Responsible AI Alliance for Women to Lead in what it is to be responsible with your use of artificial intelligence. And I think regardless of what your career domain is, you just have to think about, like, what is it to be authentic? What is it to have integrity in the kind of positive impact that you want to drive, and just stay true to that.
So good. So let's have some imagination. Okay, it's Women's History Month, and we know that we've had suffrage movements, we've had the ability to own our own bodies, we've had, the ability for equal pay. So we've had all these fights. So 20 years from now, let's call it 2050, so 20-ish years from now, and you look back on this moment, Carol, let's just say it's in the cards, you're talking to your granddaughter. Grace, let's just say maybe you're talking to your daughter. What are you going to tell her, not only about the moment that we're in now, but where you hope we are in 20 years?
I would say that in the moment that we're in now, we've made some progress forward and some steps backwards that we were not ready for. Like things went backwards that nobody expected. So you cannot rest on your laurels. And I hope in 20 years from now, there'll be at least one female who's been president of the United States. There will be more than equal representation of women on corporate boards of directors, and there will be more than half CEOs globally that are women, because women are good leaders, and that should be fully recognized.
Awesome. Thank you. Carol, I'm great.
I think, so speaking to my potential daughter about the times that we're in right now, I think I would say a similar thing, in that you can't, just because we've made it so far doesn't mean we're going to stay that far. You always have to continue pushing forward. And to that point, I think in the future, 20 years from now, I would not only like to see more women in leadership roles, but I would like to see more women of color in leadership roles, because I think that they bring so many more diverse and better perspectives than just the white view, if that makes sense. The amount of times I've been in a classroom and where I am all the time never thinking entirely of the full picture, and it's someone else who can bring in that type of knowledge, I just think it's unparalleled.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us and kicking off Women's History Month. Remember, schools don't exist without families, and families deserve clarity, respect, and a real seat at the table. Thank you for logging in with us today. Remember that Women's History Month reminds us that we are writing history every day, and I look forward to creating it with y'all. Thank you, and join us next Monday at 5.
Or into our archives on the WSIC News app.
WSIC.